incurable illness, the myth of incurable illness. Basically, when someone does not understand the science of biochemistry and physiology, or not up beyond a certain point, then they may label something as incurable because they personally do not know how to cure it. That's like saying that a language is incomprehensible. To someone who is illiterate in Arabic, reading Arabic writing is impossible. All Arabic writing is illegible to someone who does not know how to read Arabic, even if they can speak it fluently. To them, it's illegible. Consider a 3-year-old who knows how to speak basic English quite well but cannot read a word of it. That child may label all written words impossible to read, or even illegible, though most 3-year-olds have a limited vocabulary, right? Wouldn't even know the word illegible. But a physician, when they say that something's incurable, does that mean that they don't know how to cure it? Or does that mean that it's actually scientifically impossible ever to be comprehended by anyone? So, when a person has a limited understanding or a limited vocabulary, they may label some condition as incurable. That means they personally do not claim to be able to cure it. Next, there's the issue of labeling things as an illness, which in fact may be only a diagnosis. Consider that baldness, it's not a substance, it's not an illness, it's just a label. When someone has no hair, they have skin, but not any hair on that skin. That's not the presence of some substance called baldness. That's the presence of skin unaccompanied by hair. When someone has a variety of vitamins, but very little or no vitamin C, that leads to certain physiological symptoms that can be labeled scurvy. But the label scurvy is not the presence of a substance, it's only the presence of a diagnostic label. The presence of life with little or no vitamin C can be labeled scurvy. That's entirely valid. That's perhaps somewhat imprecise, though. More precise would be to say, we measured for the presence of vitamin C, and here's exactly what we found. Milliliters per, or parts per million, or whatever amount of precision. The measurements could be rather approximate, or they could be measured down to the precise number of molecules of vitamin C in the entire body, which might be a bit ridiculous to actually count one by one, right? So we always are estimating, and when we're using language, we are using an imprecise tool. It's inherently imprecise to use language. So it's not wrong to use language. It's not wrong to use imprecise language. It's using language to use language. Language is inherently imprecise, like that. So let's take a look at this picture of a cavity, so to speak, or a picture of a tooth that is missing the minerals of the interior. They call it a cavity, but what that basically means is a cave or cavern, or the absence of a strong set of minerals structure to form a tooth that's resilient from pressure. If there's enough pressure on a really weak tooth, then it will cave in or form a cavity, which basically means that there's part of a tooth. The cavity is the place where a tooth might be expected, but there's that cavity where there's actually no tooth. It's just part of a tooth. The bottom of a tooth without a top. So, we'll come back to cavities later. When someone's operating from a mild panic, a state of paranoid hysteria, we could call that hypochondria. They might label baldness as an incurable illness that they have, rather than recognizing baldness as a label in language for the presence of life unaccompanied by hair. That's hypochondria. There's no baldness. They might somebody in a panicked, paranoid state might label scurvy as an incurable illness that they have, rather than recognizing scurvy as a label in diagnostic language for the presence of life unaccompanied by certain levels of vitamin C. It would be hypochondria to say, I have scurvy. It'd be from a state of anxiety, panic, paranoia, hysteria, something like that, to believe I'm possessed by scurvy. No, it's just a presence of life unaccompanied by certain levels of vitamin C, and then the natural symptoms of that condition. So people might label diabetes as an incurable illness rather than a label for sweet urine, which is what the word diabetes comes from. Sweet urine, or sweet body fluids, or sweet blood, or high blood sugar. These are other things we could associate with what we're calling diabetes. The symptom set that's being called diabetes means sweet body fluid, sweet blood, high blood sugar, or blood that has lots of glucose due to eating lots of carbohydrates. as people refine their understanding of health and nutrition and physiology, the use of terms like diabetes may decline. The idea that there's such a thing as having diabetes, it's just a signal of a diet that's too high in carbohydrates. So there's no diabetes in their blood. There's no substance diabetes. It's just a diagnostic label. There's blood, and there's glucose in that blood from eating foods that contain lots of complex sugars that can be broken down into glucose, and that's what is natural. And then that produces certain symptoms, like blindness or the inability to see. And we can say that's caused by diabetes. Well, there is no diabetes. Diabetes is a diagnostic label. There's no substance diabetes. So if you eat enough sugar, it will no longer produce the ability to see. If you put toxic amounts of sugar and don't eat other things, then eventually no vision. So someone might, again, from a state of that mild hysteria or panic or hypochondria, anxiety, paranoia, they might label autism as incurable, rather than recognize symptoms that correspond to the presence of various things in various amounts, unaccompanied by other particular things. So autism is a label, a diagnostic label for the presence of various things in various amounts, unaccompanied by other particular things. You got enough mercury and aluminum and various toxic metals in various amounts, that's autism. You're going to have autism as a result. You're going to have the symptoms that are labeled autism. Same principle is true for cancer. It's a diagnostic label. Same thing for multiple sclerosis, for Alzheimer's, celiac disease, which is basically if you eat a lot of gluten, the natural consequences of that. If you eat a lot of wheat, which contains gluten, and other things contain gluten, if you eat a lot of that, you're going to get it's going to damage the cilia. It's going to wear down these little hair-like things called cilia, and that's going to impair digestion. That's celiac disease. It's a very natural development. Predictable. Easy to understand for somebody who comprehends physiology at that level. For someone who doesn't comprehend physiology, they'll say you're possessed by an incurable disease called celiac disease. That's hypochondria, though. So another thing that's just a natural consequence, chronic fatigue syndrome, Crohn's disease, asthma, arthritis, allergies, cavities, and so on. Everything that we know of as a diagnostic label is just a diagnostic label in language. It's not a physical substance. Each of these labels refer to the presence of various things in various amounts and the relative absence of, other things, unaccompanied by other things. So here's some pictures of some teeth, and you can see the teeth actually, are showing holes in the teeth. I'm not sure of the background of all that. Obviously, something like acid could actually eat through teeth, taking away the minerals, removing a portion of the teeth. But in many cases, we're just dealing with a lack of minerals in the diet. I'll come back to that. So when there are not, here it is, when there are not many minerals in the diet, then there will be less minerals in the teeth. There can't be many minerals in the teeth because you have to get them into you somehow to put them into the teeth. So the teeth will get softer and then may cave in. That's called having cavities. The word cavity is derived from the word cave. It's empty. There's nothing in a cavity. There's nothing in baldness. There is no baldness. There is no cavity except as a label. So if someone wants to cure cavities, they need to strengthen their teeth by providing the relevant minerals. When there are enough minerals for the body to build and maintain strong teeth, there's no caving in of teeth to label as having a cavity. There's no partial teeth to say, oh, that's the presence of a cavity, when it's just a partial tooth. When the body needs minerals so desperately that it takes them out of the teeth so as to maintain the more essential functions of various organs, like the brain, then that produces a decline in the mineral concentrations in the teeth, resulting in softening and caving in. So that's about cavities. There's another picture of a filling where somebody puts some metal to kind of what's it called, cover over where the teeth have such a low concentration of minerals that the teeth is actually, it's just a partial tooth. There's not a full There's not enough minerals to make a full tooth.